Alright, welcome back to Learn Python for Economic Computation. Today we're starting chapter 2, and we're going to work through introduce lists and basically spend the chapter understanding the features that are included in lists. There's a lot to understand about lists, but in terms of what you actually need to know, a few components will mostly do the job, and then we can pick up the rest as we go along in the projects in class. Purpose of these videos, of course, is to take you through in detail these concepts in computation. So let's get started. At the beginning of chapter 2, we have this example called lists, and we're going to start working from there, and then we'll keep building this script of ours. Okay. So there's different kinds of lists in the sense that lists can hold different things. So in Python, we have what's called a dynamic list, which is different than, say, an array. If you've worked in a different language, say worked in Java or C++, you might have worked with arrays. Python makes your life easy because all lists are dynamic, meaning they're not a fixed length. Once you create the list can have elements added or removed. Also, the list can have different types of elements, which is a unique feature compared to an array, which you have to have one type of element of in other languages. Okay, so let's create our lists. We have empty list, int list. The int list is going to have, what do you know, integers. You're going to have a float list, which of course is going to have floats. You could write it as 1.0 or 2 point. 3 point will give you the same thing as 3.0, so let's mix that up a bit. We have the string list. And finally, our mixed list, which is going to have every kind of value and a string that we include above. So we'll have 1, 2.0, and mix it up. Okay. Now, this first example, there's not really much of interest here. We can just print all of the lists that we created. Oh. Okay, let's run it. Mixed list is not defined. That's because I didn't finish that. Okay. We run it and we just printed all the lists, and it's basically what you think it'd be. So that's not very interesting. But we can work with some of these. Okay. So maybe in the next example I'm going to concatenate a list. So let's do that here. Concatenate. And let's concatenate int and float and see what happens. Concatenate means to join together. So you're joining list 1 and list 2 to make a list that includes both of those. And it looks like I misspelled concatenate somewhere. Yep. This should have been concatenate. Okay. Still not happy. Let's see. Concatenate int float list. Oh, and looks like I'm not sure what happened there. Okay. Alright, that looks good. So we concatenated the int and the float list, and you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as integers, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as floats. Okay, and of course, right, you could concatenate. You can see here a list of different types. Any lists basically. All this is saying is put them together. Okay. Now remember, strings work like this as well. So we had a string, for example. let's just say my name, okay, and let's say first and last, actually. This will be interesting. Okay. And now full name equals first plus last. Now there's going to be a missing space here, but interesting enough for us to look at. Full name. And you can see here, we concatenated the strings in the same way we concatenated the lists. Okay, well that's interesting. Let's learn something else about lists as we go through this. Okay, what if instead of concatenating, instead of just looking at the concatenation, let's also print out different numbered elements from each of these lists, okay? So maybe I want to print element 0. Maybe I want to print element 0 through 5. And we can do the same thing here. Print full name, element 0, print full name through 5. Okay. And what do you know? We have the full concatenated list. We have the first element, element 0, call it the first element. This is the 0th element. But as far as you probably think it's the first. And then here's the first 5 elements. Okay. Likewise, here's my name. Here's the first element of my name, like the first letter. Here's the first 5 letters. Okay. So strings are a special kind of list. And they have a lot of the same properties, not all the same properties, but a lot of the same properties as the dynamic list. Okay, so that gives us, I think, more than enough material to think about for this lesson, and we'll get started back with some relevant lessons in this chapter.